Welcome to Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with Colin McDougall and Richard Zogel.
Wow, welcome everybody. Another week of Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with my good friend, and as I like to say, my partner in golf and crime, Richard Zogel. How are you, Richard?
I am well, Colin. Good to talk with you again. There's a plethora of things to discuss and dive into. Matthew Fitzpatrick was added again. What an impressive victory it was for him. But a lot of stories in there, what everyone was trying to achieve in the final round of the Valspar Championship.
Yeah. So we'll quick high level and sort of what's going to unfold. We're going to do a little tour recap, talk about a few things that caught our eye from this week. We have an amazing guest this week. We have Rick Young from Score Golf, equipment guy extraordinaire, was president of the Golf Journalists Association of Canada. We're going to talk a little bit about the golf ball rollback and all the discussion around that.
The Distance Insight project
that's been going on for project, which has ties to Canada, Vancouver, in fact. And we are going to do, of course, our mental mind track golf moment for the week. And and then we'll wrap it up. Well, I don't know if you even know this, but I have a long background in association with Innisbrook, where the tour event was played, and so I'm going to share a fun story towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
great,
some interesting stuff with it. Yeah, so off the top, PGA Tour, Matthew Fitzpatrick. What a wonderful story from a week to week. I mean, if you're rooting for stories, which I am in golf, this is a good one, as good as you can hope for. He has a total heartbreak on the 18th of the Players Championship last week, and here on the 18th green this week, he rolls it in to win by one. What do you think about Matthew Fitzpatrick?
Well, there were a number of storylines to begin the final round of the Valspar Championship. I think with 18 holes to go, I think the favorite among the leaders was Matthew Fitzpatrick, but Sung Jae Im was in there. Brent Snedeker was the headlines of that story of him being 45 years old, and on Saturday he was 11 for 11 and Houdini like in escaping. We can talk about that more in depth if you'd like. But Marco Pinch showed his presence and bombed it right over all the bunkers right from the first tee, hitting it 330 off the tee. David Lipsky was trying to win for his first time. A guy we haven't heard of, this guy by the name of Jordan Smith, who had a chance to get into the playoff as well. And Xander Schauffele had a storyline in there as well. But lots to see. So going into the final round, you knew the golf course was playing very similar to the Players Championship last week, which was playing crispy. Very similar. Yeah, very crispy, very brown, very yellow on the greens, and very similar to the Players Championship, which was very similar to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So golf courses that are playing U.S. Open like, major championship like. And so you would figure the person who of the top 10 going into the final round after 54 holes, Matthew Fitzpatrick fits that mold because he's won a U.S. Open. He has the stoicism, he has the mental skill and the acceptance, not patience, but acceptance that it takes to win. And then he also had the wherewithal, and some may argue that it wasn't right, that he was paired with Andre Dumont de Chassard, if I said his name right, who was brand new, who opens up with a triple bogey playing with Matt Fitzpatrick, and was highlighted as a very slow player. And what Matthew Fitzpatrick did, he called an official, he said, put us on the clock. He was getting ahead of a problem because there's nothing more frustrating than you being a good player and playing well and having a rhythm and you're trying to win a golf tournament and this person you're playing with is very slow and it's going to disrupt your cadence, it's going to disrupt your rhythm, and you're trying to win this golf tournament. So it was a very mature and veteran move to call in the artillery on your own position because he needed to handle the. He was trying to win, and he knew he could do that. So good on him. I've done that before, and
oh, really?
We can talk about that in depth if you'd like.
Let's. Well, I do want to get to that then because that's really interesting to me. And one of the things I as I was watching that part of things unfold, what I wondered, because I as I've said many times on the show, I haven't played at your level of professional golf, but I have played sort of high level amateur golf, that sort of thing. And I do wonder at times in those circumstances whether players who are playing slow, whether it's sometimes a competitive strategy, where it's like, I know you're you're a quicker player, and I'm locked into a battle of some kind with you, whether it's in a match or whether it's in a tournament, but we're in the same group and we're at or near the top of the leaderboard. Do I deliberately slow it down in order to adversely affect your play? And I wondered whether you think that's what might have been at hand, or whether it's just a case of this guy was playing slow and Fitzpatrick sort of thought, I got to get ahead of this.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the guy you're playing with. I mean, you're playing against all 140 other people in the tournament that you're doing. And typically these are rookies or don't know or haven't learned yet to pace a play. And one of the problems, that's typically the situation. I think we've seen those things play, in Ryder Cup and match play. That, Seve's been known to do that. Ray Floyd, got in his face.
You're telling me stop thinking about the worst in people.
Well, I mean, yeah. So those things can happen, and the last thing you want to do is would Matthew Fitzpatrick get in his face and say speed up? That's not his job.
Right.
That's not his job. So basically, he knew that the group fell out of time, and he knew that this was going to be a problem. And what fast players typically do is they try and speed up, and it takes them out of their cadence, and it takes them, and then they get frustrated because they start playing poorly. They're altering their
they're trying to compensate for the time so that it all equals out. Okay?
And veteran players, they do not. They know what to do. You say, go to your volunteer, said, I need an official. The official comes in. I've done that. And you get ahead of it, because slow players never get caught. They never get caught. So they slow the group down. The group gets a warning. So everyone's on the clock. And you've got, there's no rules in the game of golf that you say you have to be 40 seconds or 60 seconds to hit a shot. There's nothing in the rules of golf that you said you need to not waste time and be prompt, but there's no set time. But when you get warned on the PGA Tour, back in my day, the group got a warning because they were out of position either by time par or the hole is in the hole's open in front of them, and then everyone gets time. The first guy gets, I think, 55 seconds to hit their shot, and everyone thereafter has 40 seconds. So these slow players that cause the group to be delayed in the first place get a warning, and then they speed up when they're being timed, and they never get it. And that's the most frustrating thing there is. So Matthew Fitzpatrick is sitting here going, I got to get ahead of this thing, because he's into it 8-9 holes, and if he doesn't take care of his business, he won't win the golf tournament, and he's not going to get into get in his playing partner's face, because that'll be threatening, and he's got to take care of his own business, in which he did, and he did it in a very well manner.
Good. I wonder whether, I haven't heard of that being done before. I mean, maybe it has, like you said, where it's maybe perhaps a bit more common, especially with let's say groups that aren't as close to the front of the leaderboard. But to me, it's like the self-owning of you need to come and block us right now.
I got to tell you this story. This story
please.
involves. Do you remember a guy by the name of Guy Boros?
Yes, was he the son or grandson of Julius?
Yeah, he's
Boros?
Julius Boros' son, and Guy is a great guy. He won the Greater Vancouver Open. And his PGA
Total character,
Tour,
big, bulky,
big guy, real big guy, and he's a fast player. He's a good player. He's a great guy. So we're playing in the Korn Ferry Tour in Washington State, Tri-Cities. And Guy is paired with two slow players, Kelly Gibson and Ben Crane. Nice guys, great guys, but they're very, very slow. You remember Ben Crane had a situation with
Rory
Rory
Sabatini, wasn't he? Sabatini. Yep.
Sabatini. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And that was an ugly situation, how Sabatini handled that thing. So here's the situation. Guy Burrows is playing with Kelly Gibson, who's from New Orleans, and Ben Crane. I'm playing in the group behind him, and we're on the first round. They're in the second group in the afternoon wave, and Kelly and Ben Crane are taking just forever, and it's driving Guy Burrows nuts because he plays fast. And he gave up the fact that like he's got to, and those guys were playing well, and the more well they play, the slower they get.
Yes.
And it's just driving. And the next day, and we're teeing off on the second wave, and Guy Burrows, he's pissed off. I'm putting my shoes on. He's putting his shoes on. We're just finished breakfast, and he says, "I'm going to get these fuckers." And he said, "I know. What do you mean?" He says, we could tell that he was going nuts. Because he says, I'm going to slow down. So the first group goes off. The second group goes off, Burrows and Kelly Gibson and Ben Crane. And I'm noticing, well, what's he going to do? I can't imagine what he's going to do. Yeah. So the first group goes off. The second group goes off. And Guy Burrows puts it in stall. Like he's taking 4 minutes to hit every shot. And the tension is rising. We're going, what the hell? These guys, there's 3 holes open in front of them by the time they get to the 5th hole. And so the next thing you see is these 3 holes, and you see these 3 carts of PGA Tour officials converging on the second group. And Kelly Gibson and Ben Crane are, now that they're slow, and Guy Burrows is purposely being slow. He's slowing them down by throwing out the anchor. And all of a sudden, the officials get on them. There's 3 holes behind, and they are on top of those guys, and it causes Kelly Gibson and Ben Crane. Kelly Gibson withdrew before the end of the 18th hole.
No way. Okay.
It shook him up, and he started playing poorly. And Ben Crane, I think, shot 80 that day. And Guy Burrows, he said, if these guys have the audacity to hurt me in my game, I have no problem throwing out the anchor, holding up the group like never seen before. And he blew those guys away. And after the round, I shook his hand and go, Guy, I've never seen anything like that. That was beautiful. So that's a slow paced story that Guy Burrows is so proud of getting involved.
Well, he probably built a reputation around it too. Like, don't mess with him when he's like playing your time.
And Guy's the type of guy. So if you hit that shot and he's next right after you, he would be in his backswing before your ball hit the ground. That's how fast this guy played.
Oh yeah, he was super.
He was delightful
for sure. Yeah. You're finished your follow through. He's pegging it in the ground right behind.
Exactly.
So I think it was a wonderful week at the Valspar. I think it was the course. I think held up well. In terms of, it's a very well respected golf course. It happens just to be sort of sandwiched around some bigger events. And but I think the players all really appreciate it. I was going to mention, I off the top, I have this connection with Innisbrook. So there's a few things that, my observation, having seen the Valspar be played there for many years, a lot of people don't know. There's a couple things that I think people would be interested in knowing. One is, it is a huge property. There are multiple golf courses. I don't know why they never sort of expand upon sort of what's on offer there, but there's several great golf courses. There's another golf course on there called the Island, which was, for a lot of us, seemed to be equal, if not like in terms of quality, as Copperhead, at least back in the day. It has 1,000 condo units there. And what's interesting is it's like, we have the Great White North, which is Canada. I would call that the Great White South, because there are, out of the 1,000 units, there'd be over 100 that are owned by Canadians. And almost all from London, Stratford, and North Bay, of all things. And it started back with our family. It's very close to the Toronto Blue Jays spring training camp.
Dunedin,
and that's how we started going, because my father was involved with bringing the Blue Jays to Toronto way back when. And so if there was a second home for me from a golf standpoint,
That
that
was
would
it.
be
Yeah.
it. That was it. And it's just got a lot of fond memories for me as a place. And I'll tell you one quick funny story. I was driving. I would drive down with my family. This isn't that long ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, because we had the kids in the van and we would stay there for a while. So flying seemed, it's easier to drive. So we would drive down, pit stop in Atlanta and see my sister-in-law. Anyways, we drive all the way from Atlanta to Innisbrook, and I pull in Innisbrook. It's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm at the check-in to get the key for the room, and I see this vision coming my way. Somebody's on rollerblades, which is not particularly unusual around there. People who sort of do it for exercise or whatever. But I'm like,
Yep.
looking at that person, I'm like, I think you look familiar. I don't know, and I look closer and closer, and it was Premier Mike Harris, the Premier of Ontario, was on rollerblades, just as sweaty and with these awful shorts and this shirt on, like covered in sweat. And I just thought, I was like, I think that's something that nobody else may have ever seen. Is the Premier of Ontario anyways, it was just a very striking vision. And I was like, if I was if I had back then I had a camera phone, I would have been able to sell that photo of the Toronto Sun for thousands of dollars, I'm quite sure. Anyway, so it's a great golf course. It held up really well. I do want to mention a couple of things on the tour side of things. We had Hyo Joo Kim won the Fortinet Founders Cup, beat Nelly Korda by a shot. We had Stephen Alker, who beat Padraig Harrington by a shot on the Champions Tour. We had a very emotional Bryson DeChambeau winning in a playoff over Jon Rahm on Live. I would highlight, and I'm definitely going to bring in the conversation we have coming up with Rick Young. He hit Bryson a 300-yard 3-wood on a par 5 to win ultimately the playoff, and I think it sort of leads into the conversation. But I did want to mention some of the others, and the other note I wanted to share: 2 Canadians in the top 15 at Valspar. AJ Ewart had a great finish, $200,000 plus, so he's well on his way to keeping his card going ahead.
I can't say enough about this young man. I mean, he is settling in and playing golf at a high level like a veteran. And I certainly didn't have the composure when I was my first 10 years on the PGA Tour. Yeah, and Corey Connor found his typical place deep in the pack in anonymity, but when is he going to bust out? I mean, the Copperhead course is just a perfect golf course for Corey. He's won it before there, but his ball striking is just perfect for it. But we hopefully to AJ Ewart will push him a little bit. He can see the momentum of AJ Ewart coming on strong, and his fearlessness as it relates to playing at the highest level. And I want to see Corey just kind of get a couple of steps forward.
Yeah, I paid close attention to Corey on the PGA Tour website, where you can sort of follow the shot tracker. And my quick observation, I think the stats are maybe I'm I'm only seeing what I want to see, but it seems to me like it's the same problem. He strikes it great. He misses way too many sort of 8, 10, 12 footers in comparison to the people who are winning. And he's kind of a consistent. The term they use is a stripe show. He hits it. He hits it perfectly all the time, and I think part of it is you give that many chances. You are going to miss some, but I think we both feel like maybe there's something on the mental side that if we could just unlock him from that distance, I think he'd be a world beater.
Yeah, I think he's got the opportunity to do just that. Looking forward to him doing it.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a break right now. We're gonna add in a commercial spot. And we're going to come back with our wonderful guest, Rick Young from Score Golf, talk about equipment, the golf ball rollback, the distance rollback, and other great stuff coming up next. This episode of Tough Lies is brought to you by TrueSpec AI Yardage Intelligence. Most golfers use GPS. Smart golfers use data. TrueSpec pairs high-resolution course mapping with AI-powered shot strategy. Through a mobile app that knows exactly where you are on the course, current wind conditions, elevation change, and most importantly, your shot tendencies. It doesn't just tell you the number, it recommends the club, the target, even the smart miss. All you have to do is execute. TrueSpec, AI yardage intelligence, because strategy should be automatic, pressure is not. Okay, well, welcome back to Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast. So wonderful to be with my good friend Rick Young from Score Golf, equipment writer extraordinaire, past president of the Golf Journalists Association of Canada. We're going to spend a little time on our deep dive today talking about the golf ball rollback. Some of you may not even know that this is on the horizon. We thought it'd be a good discussion. And towards the end, we're going to try to get some insights on, what's coming down the pipeline for this season. We're almost there from an equipment perspective. And who better to have than our wonderful friend, Rick Young. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing good, guys. Congratulations on the podcast. I've actually been enjoying it a lot. It's great.
You sound surprised.
Nice to be and nice to be on as a guest now already. Wow.
Yeah, we're moving fast, and we're delighted to have
fast.
you on board, Rick. I mean, you go back a long ways with Colin and myself, and you're a passionate golf industry writer, and you've been the former president of what's called the Golf Journals Association of Canada, and we absolutely do recognize your passion and knowledge and expertise on the matter that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So I wondered, Rick, maybe we could get started. Like, for those who wouldn't necessarily be day-to-day followers of the equipment side of the industry, but are passionate about the game, there is this notion or this concept of the golf ball rollback that has got some press of late, last few years. Maybe just give a quick sort of summary of what's been happening and what is coming on the horizon as it pertains to that.
Okay, so I mean, it's funny. This whole issue really has a bit of a genesis in Vancouver. It actually starts about November of 2011, and it's something. It was basically, it's called the Vancouver Protocol, and the Vancouver Protocol was implemented or devised as part of a sort of a joint effort between the R&A, the USGA, and the golf manufacturers to have transparency when it comes to changes in golf equipment. From the Vancouver Protocol, there was the implementation of something called the Joint Statement of Principles. And effectively, what the Joint Statement of Principles is a commitment to have one set of rules for equipment. Not two, not three, not five, one. So in the interim, after that, and now look, you guys have to know, you both know, some of the listeners may not, but distance in golf has been a burning hot topic for many, many years. Look, it goes back to really even the golden age architects. Guys like Harry Colt and Alistair McKenzie and Donald Ross. They were getting concerned that the golf ball was starting to go too far. And at the end of the day, what's happened is you now have a sort of it all came to a head. Distance just basically came to a head. The manufacturers were on one camp. The governing bodies are on the other side. They're saying it goes too far. Other people say it's not. It doesn't even go far enough for amateurs. And I think at this particular point, what we have is this stalemate on distance. And we can talk, and we're probably going to talk about bifurcation here, two sets of rules in a minute. But at the end of the day, what's happened just more recently with this is this week even. There was a letter sent by the governing bodies in January, and unfortunately, at this particular point, it looks like that the golf ball rollback that was going to be implemented by the governing bodies starting in January of 2028 for professionals, and in 2030 for the rest of us, is not going to work that way. It now looks like it's all going to be on one date, which is January of 2030 for everybody. And the reason for that is because the manufacturers have had not enough time to get everything in terms of prototypes, manufacturing processes, and everything in where they need to be. And there's also some serious confusion with retailers and green grass shops that are, have old inventory against new inventory. How does that work from a competitive standpoint? It's still kind of a mess as far as I'm concerned. So that's about as I mean, without going into some serious detail, that's about where we're at with the golf ball rollback.
Yeah, and let me jump in there and just I don't think it's really fair to call it the golf ball rollback. It's really the distance
rollback, yeah,
rollback, because it just isolates the golf ball, unfairly, and also too, if also part of, and you're absolutely right, Rick, that's kind of the state of affairs as it relates to it, and I think we do need to kind of mention too that the legal precedent that was set, particularly in the early 90s with Ping, being a manufacturer. And like, I remember when the square grooves came out, and in the early 90s, I remember playing at Hilton Head, and on the 16th green, it was such a small, tiny little green, and Seve was in the rough, and there's no way you can spin the ball. And he hit the shot out of there, and it stopped on the green with spinner, just like, what the hell was that? And he was using those beryllium copper square grooves, and everyone went to it. And then obviously that kind of there was a ban. The USGA and R&A, along with the PGA Tour, banned those square grooves, and there was a lawsuit with Ping, and it was up in the, I can't remember the number. Do you remember what the lost $100 million or 300? I'm not sure which.
It was multi-millions, that's for sure.
It was hundreds of millions at the time, and in the States, the PGA Tour capitulated on the steps going into the courtroom on the final decision, because if the PGA Tour lost, it would have meant a few $100,000, and in the States, when you lose, it's treble damages. It would, and if the PGA Tour, if the decision went in favor of the manufacturer, which was Ping, and against the USGA and the PGA Tour, it would have bankrupted the PGA Tour. So there was a natural settlement. So the concern is the precedent set in law that manufacturers and the manufacturers, I think we all can agree that they are 5 steps ahead of the USGA and the R&A, particularly as it relates to where everything's going, and then it kind of bleeds into bifurcation and all that kind of stuff, and it's changing dramatically. But in my opinion, as a player, I think the manufacturers are the tail that's wagging the dog, and I think I'm in favor, and we can go obviously into a respectful agreement to disagree and talk on each other's pros and cons of each side, but that's kind of where the issue sits, and I think that all these providing to make sure that the manufacturers have time enough to adjust. This is all being prepped in case it gets to war in the legal system.
I think also just one added bit of context, I think I just want to make sure I get this right, Rick, is effectively what they're doing with the golf ball in particular is they're going to put some sort of limit in terms of the speed the ball can travel, which will almost exclusively affect the longest of the longer hitters from a professional standpoint. And for the vast majority of consumers, there'll be negligible to zero sort of effect on what they'll experience when it comes to playing the game. Is that fair?
I think that's somewhat. I mean, you're very close. I think there is. I wouldn't say zero.
Okay.
Unless you're your swing speed, taps out at 60 miles per hour, and you might not really see any difference. So you're probably right.
I'm getting old, but not that old.
I think in a big picture sense, this whole issue of distance is multifaceted, and I think I think three of us can all agree that it's more than just one parameter, meaning it's more than just the golf ball. It's more than just the driver. It's more than just agronomy and launch monitors and better physical specimens and all this other stuff from a strength and conditioning standpoint. But I think when you get down to the golf ball, I think when you get to the golf ball, I think we got to, and this goes back to what you just kind of said there, Dukes. I mean, the manufacturers themselves, if you take a product like a golf ball, let's use TaylorMade TP5 as an example. The TP5 is the reason for the 5 is it's 5 layers. So each of those layers, and this is another reason why I think the timeline of this implementation is being pushed forward again to 2030, is because each of those layers has to conform or do a certain thing or function, within the framework of that golf ball to be rolled to as part of the rollback, which means that each of those layers has to be could potentially, not every one of them maybe, but potentially all 5 of them in a TP5 might have to be rejigged, readjusted, to conform to the new test model that the USGA and the RNA have implemented. Now, having said that, you might say to yourself, well, geez, like how long does it take? Well, I mean, like it, and again, I'm not necessarily siding with the manufacturers in this case, but they've done certain things for in terms of one direction for a long time. Now they're being asked to build prototypes that actually take certain amount of speed and spin off of the golf ball. So I think in this particular instance with a rollback, we're looking at something that has unique qualities that have never been we've never gone down this road. We've never had to go down this road. And
but they've never been given the guidelines. They've always just been manufacturers been able to do whatever they want.
They do whatever they want, and so I think at this particular stage of this distance rollback, pertaining to the golf ball, we're starting to look at a unique model where players with the highest swing speeds, PGA Tour, the Rory McIlroys, the Jon Rahms, the Brooks Koepkas are going to lose roughly 13 to 15 yards. Is our, as recreational players, is our distance going to go down? Yes, it will a little bit. Not compared anything to them, but I guess one of the points that I make and I think about a little bit is, what if someone has worked like hell over the last 20 years to get those yards? What if they've really put in the effort, got their lessons and hit the range every week religiously and put in that work to get their swing speed up, and then suddenly if some, like even 5 or 6 yards, suddenly a bunker that was not in play is in play. And so even distance on a golf course and how golf courses are, were built at a time when the golf ball was flying as far as it did, suddenly things might change a little bit, especially if you're in that bracket where, like you especially, Dukes, you hit it good. And that could be very, exactly. And that could affect you a little bit on your overall distance. Now, look at, I'm not naive enough to think that in 1970, the British ball and the American ball went from we standardized the golf ball in 1970 from 1.62 inches diameter to 1.68, and now we all play it. Was there a big hullabaloo about it at the time? Well, maybe, but I think everybody conformed to it fairly quickly. It's not. It was,
and it was relative for everybody.
Yeah, it was relative for everybody. You played it. Dick, you know, like,
Yep.
I mean, it was a golf ball that just, I mean, it flew further just based on its
Aerodynamics,
dimensions.
smaller ball.
Yeah, smaller
Yeah.
ball. Yeah.
And so I think the standardization of that, and I mean, look, over 3 or 4 years with this, you know, after this gets implemented in 2030, if we get to 2035, the chances of this not even being an issue are
Right.
it's
Yeah.
probably
High.
it's very high.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is another, you know, there's another sort of reason to think that, you know, what comes after, you know, because the players continue to get longer and longer all the time. McIlroy has already said it. He said that by the time 2030 hits, the 15 yards, the 13, 15 yards is going to be gone from the time they started this process to where they want it to be. So, I mean, the whole answer here again is to me, I believe in bifurcation. I think the rules in this particular case are being implemented to point or being, you know, sort of catered to or looked at by, you know, at 0.2% of the golfing population, and the rest of us, the 99 or 98.9% of the rest of the world, is having to, you know, to go along with that, and that's based on the joint statement of principles. So there's lots to digest there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could jump in. It sounds funny. Like, I agree with you. I am very much of the mind, like, my characterization of this would be, these are largely what I would describe as half measures, that we would be far better off. You know, the game currently has never been bigger in terms of revenue and profitability for the industry, in terms of play, in terms of all kinds, like, it's never been better, which to me is the ideal time to sort of go, you know, to make long-term important decisions for the betterment of the game overall. I would argue bifurcation is something that should have been done a long time ago, and that this is a window in time in which there's maybe there could be that opportunity. And I would characterize what I see as sort of this constant sort of call it lack of cohesive leadership or whatever it might be. But, you know, I don't see anyone now, for example, who looks at Major League Baseball and says, you know what, aluminum bats, we need those, right? Nobody says that.
No.
Right? The game is phenomenal as it is. And I look at it and say, why are we not sort of going more all in? And it's the irony in all of it is, to me, is that the blowback on bifurcation biggest is from the best players. Like, the biggest top players, they don't want bifurcation. And to me, I think probably it's because they've learned how to just bomb and gouge it, as I would describe it, largely. And the nuance and the skill of some of the shot making from the era of, you know, back when Dick was on tour and so forth, is just lost. You know, there's, you know, we just watched this weekend, 2 weekends ago, we watched a 375-yard drive on the final hole at the Players. And then this week we watched Bryson hit a 300-yard 3-wood onto the green in a playoff for LIV to win ultimately win the tournament. And I'm just looking at that going, you know, the stat that I heard was crazy. And I agree with you, Rick. Like, we're basically gaining a yard a year is, you know, in essence, that's what we're seeing over time. And by the time this thing hits, they'll have caught up almost, you know, like, in terms of the gap that they're trying to bridge. So it's like, what are we doing here? And so anyways, I just sort of landed on, I would much prefer, I think the world would prefer if the players, you know, had to play with gear that was, you know, enabled us to see the best golf courses still being played. You know, soon we're going to be looking at, you know, 7,000 yard golf course is going to be the 8,000 yard golf course.
Yeah. And you run out of land, right? I mean, Augusta National is able to acquire land because it's Augusta National. You know,
and they have the money.
Yes, exactly. Fred Ridley has an endless supply of money. If he wants to buy a piece of land, he buys it. And
Sure.
it wasn't that long ago when Augusta National was 7,000 yards or just a hair under.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they lengthened it for Tiger Woods, and he
Mm-hmm.
made it easier for him.
It did. It actually made it easier for him because nobody else could keep up. So
Well, it pleases me. It pleases me that you both are for bifurcation. Bifurcation. I think the game is already bifurcated.
It is.
Yes. Very much so.
And because if you play golf like with a breakfast ball, a mulligan here, giving putts, if you're not doing that, you're not playing by the rules of golf. So, and I'm a strong believer that let technology go, give it to the amateurs, and this is where bifurcation works in everyone's favor. But if you're a serious player, whether it's amateur playing at the provincial, state, national, or city, whatever, municipal level, you're playing in a real competition, you play by the rules of golf. And I think that it's really important to there are solutions in here, and the manufacturers have just had their way for so long because the USGA has been hasn't been they've been inept with keeping up and setting and really protecting the game, which is the calling that they are supposed to be doing. But there's a solution in here, and I think to talk specifically about the solution of the distance rollback, like the ball doesn't spin today with the golf ball because it's made to not spin, and with the size of the technology of the driver head combined, the ball goes like a bullet. It goes straight. And so, the whole easily a thing that they can do is, number one, is they can increase the minimum spin rate to a higher level of the golf ball, a combination. Let's call it 10%. You can make it spin more. That way, if you're hit an off-center tee shot, the spin in the left to right spin or the right to left spin, whether it goes into the hooks into the trees or slices into that is reduced. It's really important. The second thing that needs to happen is the size of the driver. It's allowed to go up to 466 cc's right now. They got to reduce that for the player because you reduce the sweet spot. We watched at the Players Championship, Ludwig Oberg hit that tee shot on the 11th tee, and they did a close-up shot. It was way out on the toe, high in the club face, and I was shocked that a tour player at his level missed the center of the club face that far. So they've been conditioned that harder you swing to get the power, the more unstable you can do it because of the size of the head and the size of the sweet spot. It's much more forgiving. So if we reduce the size of the driver head to in the 300 range, it'll reduce the sweet spot and make skill more of a factor. Then the third factor that I think is really important is the COR, the coefficient of restitution, which is the trampoline effect that the ball comes off the club face. So we watched Marco Pinge yesterday tee off on the first hole, and the ball speed came off at 190 miles an hour. And so that means we know that if a ball speed is 190 miles an hour, the club head speed has to be in the 127 to 130 range. Yeah. And that's not uncommon. Jack Nicklaus had 130 mile an hour club head speed when he played the tour. Freddie Couples had 130. I remember a long drive contest. This was in 1980 at the Scarlet Course at Ohio State, NCAA championship. Fred Couples won the long drive championship. It was a cold, rainy day. You got three balls. Fred's using, like everyone else, a wooden-headed club and a Balata Pro trajectory, a very spinny ball. One ball lands in the fairway and it plugs on impact at 299. His second ball at 301. Yeah. His third ball hits in the fairway and plugs at 300 with a wooden-headed club and a Balata golf ball, and that meant he had in excess of 130 mile an hour swing speed. So today's golfers did that. You can and the person who hits it longer and with a combination of straighter will always have an advantage, no matter how much they pull the distance back. But in my opinion, the farther the more powerful player, it exponentially. And so if you allow that ball to spin, it's going to bring skill level of accuracy of hitting that golf ball in the fairway back into play in a much stronger manner.
And I think one of the things too that I look at from what you just said there, and there's a whole lot to unpack of what you just said there in those 5 points. And I think one of the main ones is look, I interviewed Nicholas back in 1986 or 87. I can't remember which one it was now, but I asked him about his golf swing and the speed of his golf swing, and during the course of that interaction with Jack, one thing he told me, he says, I still a believer in swinging 80%. He says, I swing at 80% because I'm trying to make control the benchmark for me. I need to hit fairways. At that particular time, you're using, 1980, whatever, 86.
Right.
You're still using persimmon golf clubs, for Pete's sake.
That's right. Yeah.
Using Gregors and that kind of thing. So this, the 460cc drivers today, you move up the modern technology today, and you look at the high toe and the low heel miss. There's really
forgiveness.
No
forgiveness.
They're so forgiving that you can swing at just as much as you can get out of your body and as fast as you can swing that golf club.
Sure.
You can do it because they have no qualms about being just off the fairway.
Right.
Either way.
Rick, let me ask you this. What would be the trampoline effect of a persimmon wood off the face?
Yeah.
So Jack hits it, Fred Couples in 1980 hits it right on the button with their persimmon headed club, McGregor Iomatic.
Yeah.
And that ball is being hit at 130 miles. What would the wood do that's just as dense at the face, at the top, and there's no perimeter weighting for stability? What kind of trampoline effect would come off that wooden club? I don't know what the number is. Zero.
It'd be negligible, right? I mean,
it'd be negative.
Anything you get would be what you're getting on your own. You'd get zero trampoline effect.
It would be negative.
It'd be negative.
I'm guessing.
And I think, look, I think there's another set of parameters that we can look at here from a consumer level, because we miss it. I miss it. My miss is high toe. I miss high toe. And even
you
and
Ludwig are exactly the same.
Yeah, you and Ludwig.
Even at my age now, I'm still hitting it, relatively speaking, about the same distance as I did when I was, in my 30s.
Right.
And I really believe that. So
that's a common statement.
Yes, and that's a common statement. So I mean, I think this whole notion of equipment and where we're at with distance is still a bit of a red herring. I still think there's a lot to unpack as we go forward, because even in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been made aware of prototyping and materials science they're looking into new face technologies all the time. They're move different ways to move MOI and center of gravity, and I mean that's a non well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's ongoing. It'll never stop. Mm-hmm. And I think the other aspect of this that almost never gets talked about is the shaft. Okay,
right.
If you put a steel shaft in all of these guys' drivers, Dick, you used to play steel shafts in your driver, right? You give them those steel shafts that you used to have that in some of the drivers that they're playing today. I'm sorry, they're not getting anywhere near where those distances are actually going. Right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think
it's a good point.
The shaft has been sort of the silent partner in this whole distance debate. I think, as well as certain other things like launch monitors, like agronomy, and that kind of stuff. So it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I think I'm concluding that we're going to have to bring you back somewhere down the line and talk further on this and other stuff, because I do want to move to. So let me share sort of a a quick final thought on this, and then I do want to ask you sort of what's coming from an equipment perspective this year, just out of general interest. I think people will be interested to know what's sort of coming down the pipeline. For me, I feel like one of the things, it's almost like you don't know what you're missing because you haven't seen it, but there's so many what I would describe as artistic players, like that we don't really see today. Like Trevino comes to mind. Like nobody's shaping the ball like he used to when he played. Nobody is doing all the creative stuff that I would argue that Seve was capable of doing, because the ball just does not sort of curve that way anymore, right?
It doesn't spin.
It does, yeah. And so we've seen we are missing out as fans in a way the game is played now at the highest level that I think I would love to see us sort of move back towards, and to me the only way to do that is bifurcation.
Yeah, bifurcation, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's put some guidelines on the best players in the world, or if you play in tournament golf. But let technology go. I mean, the game is hard enough as it is to hit the club on a 460 cc head. So,
I know you both
let it go.
I know you both have seen some of the videos of McIlroy and some of the modern players, hitting a Titleist professional or a tour blast or whatever with the that spin and that cover and I mean it's actually pretty. You don't have to look very far to see.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It honestly is. It really is.
Yeah. And I think it just and my quick plug to Brian Rollap, new CEO of the PGA Tour. He has openly stated that he's working basically from fan engage, like whatever's good for the fan is what we ought to be doing. To me, this is a perfect example.
Well, and I'm delighted that Tiger and Jack, like the real kind of responsible people that hold that responsibility of the game, are for the distance rollback. And I think that we should be able to pull it back and get some guidelines on this, so technology doesn't take over.
There's one thing that I need to point out here that I should have said earlier, but I think this is important. You just mentioned Brian Rollap, new CEO of the PGA Tour. Right now, if you honestly look at where we stand with this distance rollback, with the specific to the golf ball, if you actually look at who's in what camp, right now it's kind of like the USGA, the R&A, and Augusta National. They're on one side, but the PGA Tour and the
players,
are actually on the other side.
They are.
They are.
I know,
which
is crazy.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense because you go to a player and say, okay, we're going to change some rules here, and you're going to hit it shorter. They're going to go, well, I don't like that. Why would I like that?
No one wants you got to learn how to play better because the ball is going to curve or something like that.
But when they understand that the higher skill level is going to be given, or the difference between the length, it will help the average skilled player. But then also too, the PGA of America, I think, needs to disclose that their direct extension and involvement with the manufacturers, they sell those clubs in their shop. And
it's in their economic interest. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I whether it be, and even if you're like, my buddy Brad Faxon, who's been a Titleist guy his whole life, and Michael Breed, who've been, Titleist, I think it's really important and credible that they disclose their position before they make the argument. I think you just need to do that. Like our good friend Lauren Rubenstein, he would always, full disclosure guy, whether you're writing about, me or anything like that, he would, he discloses that he's a good friend right up front. And I think that really is critically important. So it makes sense that the PGA of America doesn't want anything to do it. And they're coming at him at the pros hard. The PGA of America is coming at them hard to take a stance and be in our camp. That's going on because it's a political football.
No question. Where economics, the economics incentive are there. Now I do want to. So Rick, before we let you go, I saw you down at the PGA show, per usual, and you're rolling through the halls of the PGA merchandise show, which for those who've never been, it's like it is one of the maybe it's not the eighth wonder of the world, but it might be the ninth or 10th because it is an insane amount
The Super Bowl of the
of.
golf industry.
Oh my goodness! Well, you just walk through there, and I think most people who sort of have a passing knowledge of the game would not appreciate just how much goes on, like how big that show is. It is an enormous endeavor, and you roll through the halls every year. You talk to all the manufacturers, all aspects, and then you bring such wonderful insight in terms of what's coming. So I'm very curious, sort of what caught your eye this year. What should people be on the lookout for? What's coming?
I think it's a year of the driver. We've got 3 or 4 like really good drivers that were put out in early January. Callaway with their Optimum and TaylorMade with the QI4, QI4D. Ping's got their new G440K, which is just like it's lighting it up. That thing is just wild how straight it is. It's incredibly straight at 10,000. For MOI, it's just crazy. And then Cobra and Strixon. I mean others. I mean it's definitely a driver year as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
That extends today. We just got an announcement last night that Titleist went pushed their timeline up for their new DTS series. Usually that would come out in October or September, August or September. This year, for whatever reason, they've decided to get in on this first quarter, and they've put their new driver out, their new drivers out there. So I think that's a big thing. I think Bridgestone's new golf ball is really attracting a lot of attention this year. Okay. It's really getting a lot of fundamental airplay from on TV and on social media and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's already won multiple times on tours worldwide. And then some of the more interesting things too is golf shoe technology just keeps. I tell you, it is unbelievable what they're doing in terms of foundational support and outsole traction, and uppers and comfort, and it's crazy. And a lot of people, this goes back to the distance debate just a little bit too. They're building shoes to make you faster with your feet,
sure,
with your hands,
And it makes good sense. I mean, all we got to do is look at Matthew Fitzpatrick with using his ground force and with this technique of jumping out that left, pressing down and then lifting up, and his step left and step back, and increase speed, because what it's doing, it's clearing that left hip faster. Back in the George Knudson days, he would clear his left hip, meaning his left hip would have to be in great shape, flexible, and a lot of so he kept his left foot down on the ground so he wouldn't lose control. But you can look at Matthew Fitzpatrick right now, who's not losing control at all, and he's optimizing his distance, which pushing up, and the highlight of Johnny Miller back in the early 70s.
Yeah, I saw that.
Left.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. But
you're
right.
Very interesting. Good catch for sure.
Shoe technology is impacting clubhead speed.
No doubt about it. I think too, just to continue on with the thought, Dukes and Dick, look, golf putter technology just continues to ramp up. The whole zero torque category has become a category. It was we thought a few of us in the media that cover this space, we thought it was kind of going to be a couple of one-offs and that kind of thing. No, we were wrong. This has become a full-blown category. Almost every major manufacturer has at least 1 or 2 or 3 zero torque options out there. So I think that's another that's something else to pay attention to, going forward. And then just for something fun, look, I'm not one of those people who thinks you should go out and buy a $15,000 launch monitor or anything like that. But I mean, there's some launch monitors out there now, including a couple this year that one by ShotScope called the LM1 that's coming in at like $199. U.S.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
And another one, and another couple. I can't think of which companies put them out top of my head, but they're kind of all around the $500 mark, and they're great. They have like multiple advantages in terms of how they're built and the parameters that you get and the whole thing. So there's no shortage of great stuff. Again, if you're whatever you're looking for, the golf industry has it out there. You just have to go to your local golf professional, your local off course retailer, and the whole world is your oyster. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
It doesn't have, really doesn't.
My son installed one in his garage this past week. He was delighted. He's sitting there. He's so excited, and he's hitting more and more shots. And the social involvement around it is significant as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So that's great. Well, listen, I do have to say this is an unusual year from an equipment perspective for myself, because the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame and Museum has been hounding me for years as to when I'm going to hand my clubs over to as museum pieces, because they don't have grooves anymore. There's some real vintage clubs that
you mean they're old? They're old.
They're old. Yes, for sure. Everybody looks at my bag. And
last time you and I played.
Yeah, everybody looks at my bag. It's like, what did you get here in a DeLorean with a flex capacitor? Like, what happened? So I am actually going to be in market. So I'm going to talk to you, Rick, about myself, my needs from equipment perspective after this is done. But I do want to say thank you so much for joining us, Rick. It's been really, really interesting conversation. I think we're gonna have to have you back and talk more about some of these things around equipment in due time. I think, Richard, you'd agree. It was great to hear sort of these views, and
absolutely, yeah.
The audience is going to really appreciate what you're bringing. So thanks very much for joining us, Rick. Yeah.
Right, Rick, you're a tribute to Canadian golf and your passion for it and knowledge, and has been admired for a long time. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
100%.
Really appreciate you having me on. Best of luck with the rest of the show, and anytime you want me back, I'm here for you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Younger. Appreciate it. All right, well, we're back. What a great discussion with our friend and colleague in golf, Rick Young. I'm very much looking forward to future conversations with him. It's very interesting to hear, both what's coming up for the season and equipment, and so the colorful discussion around the golf.
Yeah, it's good to find someone who can do the deep dive into the technicalities and the legal aspects of this as well, because I think a lot of golfers just want to play golf, and they want the best equipment they can get. Yeah,
and I think I think one thing I'll take away from that discussion was, it is multifaceted. We could spend a lot of time in various aspects. It is at times very technical, and so it's like, well, what's the underlying spirit? Mm-hmm. I think there's general alignment with all of us on sort of what the underlying spirit is. We want what's good for the game. It was very, very interesting. In particular, I thought, I hadn't thought about it at the time, but the importance of the shaft as a critical element, it really is the engine of the golf club.
I
think
it is.
So I did want to jump to our MindTrack mental side of the game. We always like to talk on this aspect because you're such an expert, and I think it's the people do talk about it, but it is also, I still think, an underplayed element to playing your best golf.
Absolutely. So the MindTrack moment, as we like to call it, is striving to be stoic. Yeah. So what does that mean? We watched Matthew Fitzpatrick, and he's the epitome of being stoic. After the round at the Players Championship, when Cam Young, who's stoic unto his own as well, thanked Cameron Young's family and went over and congratulated them, and how it's just fantastic. Being stoic is really an important thing. So what we mean by that is being stoic is cultivating a calm, rational, and virtuous mindset, focusing exclusively on controlling one's own thoughts, actions, and emotions, while accepting external results with indifference.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, to kind of break that down a little bit, a lot of people saying, well, you got to be patient. We hear that often. I'm just being patient out there. Well, vocabulary is very important. And when you say I'm being patient, I think kind of it connotates it that if you're patient, you'll get rewarded. But being patient, meaning it might, if you're patient, it will land on your lap. It never lands on your lap. So basically, the word of patience needs to be substituted with acceptance and accepting external results, meaning bad bounces or situations that didn't go your way. So let's unpack that. Matthew Fitzpatrick is with Cameron Young on the 18th tee at the Players Championship. And Cam gets in there and hits his 375 tee shot down there. It's the toughest tee shot, and he doesn't hit an excellent tee shot. It was a good one, but it wasn't excellent, and it got through the fairway. And he accepted the way it turned out. And you could watch Matthew Fitzpatrick on the final round. Those putts weren't dropping, just as they didn't drop at the Players Championship. And you're going, oh, is this guy going to get frustrated, and is he going to get pissed off, and is he going to lose it? But he held it in there and finished with that birdie on the last hole. So his acceptance paid off. Yeah. You know, there's one guy who isn't accepting this, Jordan Spieth. We're continually watch him, and his game is coming around, and he has to prove himself all over again. And he's making a lot of putts from outside, a lot of three-pointers type of thing, a lot of 15-footers, 25-footers, but he's missing those short ones. Yeah. And so being stoic, and I recommend that Jordan Spieth learns to be stoic, and he accepts those situations rather than being on the whiny side. Yeah. That whiny side, he can't believe it, and he's got to go into this explanation why he feels like he got screwed on this putt. Is something that I think he needs to improve on, and I would hope someone in his camp is able to get his head straight, and there's a few other guys that are out there like that. So acceptance and being stoic. Just look to Cam Young, just look to Matthew Fitzpatrick, look at Ludwig Oberg, how he handled those things. These are moments that really define who you are, and I think they're very important.
I listened in on the presser for Fitzpatrick after the round, and I couldn't help but think of you as he was saying a couple of key things in my mind. One was he somebody asked a question, which I think is a logical question to ask, which was you're coming up with the final hole. Did your thoughts sort of trail off to what happened last week, where it didn't work out for you, sort of thing? And he very concisely said, basically, no, I don't think about anything other than the shot at hand and what I can control in that moment. So it's like he clearly had developed the capacity to sort of like compartmentalizing what he's going to think about in those moments, and he just all I think about is the shot at hand, what I've got to execute. I don't think about anything else, which is for most of us, it's like, how can you not think about it? You just totally got burned in the previous week and all that sort of stuff.
It's funny you say that, because then I think earlier in the week, Jordan Spieth was asked, "Are you able to compartmentalize it?" And he goes, "Absolutely not." And he was talking in jest. Yes. But he said, "No, don't you play golf? Don't you know that it's golf?" And he's accepting that it's frustrating for him. That's not going to get the job done. Yeah. And I think Matthew Fitzpatrick and as I mentioned, Cameron Young in the past 2 weeks, and from the Arnold Palmer to the Players Championship to the Copperhead course, these are tough golf courses. It takes, the burn rate and energy rate. But we just watched Matthew Fitzpatrick play out being a stoic champion that he is, and it's only going to serve him better in the future.
Yeah. And for those who believe in karma, I think watching how he handled himself at the week of the Players to this week can't help but sort of say, yeah, this is exactly what he deserves.
Good things
And
happen to good
good
people, and
exactly.
Matthew Fitzpatrick displayed the essence of of what a good person is with Cam Young's victory to his family.
Yeah, he's made me a real fan, and I'm excited to see him do well. Well, that's gonna do it for this week of Tough Lies and the Golfers podcast. Make sure you catch us on Twitter. Mr. Zokol has some interesting things to say there, and on all the social medias, and of course on our website, which is, God damn it. Well, just Google us and put Tough Lies podcast in Google. It's going to be there. And looking forward to another great week. Thanks again, Richard, and thanks to our wonderful guest, Rick Young. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Colin. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Join us next week on the Golfers Podcast with Richard Zokol and Colin McDougall.